All right, welcome everyone to Thursday of National Distance Learning Week with SUNY Online. I'm so glad that you could be here for today's presentation. I'll be your moderator today, and just a couple housekeeping items if you haven't joined us yet this week. Just want to keep mics muted as the session's being recorded for background noise, but Dave will let you know his preference for how to engage, whether it's the Q&A at the end or in the chat. We'd love for you to introduce yourself for a moment and tell us where you're tuning in from in the chat, if you would. And I'm thrilled to introduce our speaker today and my former colleague and friend, Dave Ghidiu, not former friend, but former colleague. Dave teaches in the Computing Sciences Department at Finger Lakes Community College, where he is also the coordinator for the Center for Teaching and Learning. He has an affinity for the intersection of cognitive science, technology, and computer nerd stuff. Previous to his time at FLCC, Dave worked for SUNY System Administration, Monroe Community College, and Honeoye Falls Lima Central School District. He and his wife enjoy hiking with their 3 Vizslas. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. It's true, Erin and I cut our teeth together in the instructional design realm at MCC back in 2010, and then again joined forces in SUNY system admin in like 2014-ish. But hi, everyone. How's it going? My name is Dave. I'm going to try and look at the chat, but I think I'm going to be sharing my screen for a lot of it. So hopefully I'll be able to moderate that as it happens. I just wanted to give you a quick, I guess, like ground rules. I went to this conference last year, and they did this really cool thing, and they made everyone start off by saying, like, listen, if this session that you walked into is not for you, like, just walk away. That's the culture we're trying to build at this conference. And I think, all of us have probably been to a session or two that we're like, oh, the first 3 minutes are not appetizing. I wonder if the last 47 minutes are going to be that appetizing. So I have packed all the cool stuff right in the beginning. So hopefully I'll be able to grab your attention there. And then it's just a steady decline. Sorry, folks. And so if you have any questions, just let me know either in the chat. You can certainly just also chat, turn off your mic. It looks like there's only a handful of us here. And I believe this is being recorded. And I do want to give a shout out. Yesterday, I went to a number of sessions, and yesterday I saw one. I would say this is the aspiring sequel to Dan. Aaron, do you know his last name? He's from GCC.
Yep, GCC.
Yeah. So he did a lot of cool stuff in Brightspace that I hadn't seen before, and I was like, oh, this is a great counterpart to it. So certainly you might want to check that out if you're craving for more kind of cool things to do in Brightspace. I am putting in a link. I officially today started a blog, or last night, called Learn Brightspace. It's not monetized or anything. It's free for everyone. There's nothing there other than the agenda for today with some links. So, but there's also a sign up. And in fact, I think maybe I'll take this opportunity to share my screen. And so you can see right now, all it is like my email address, because I think that's important, because I will be going over stuff today, and I'm kind of the mentality that it's okay to walk away not knowing how to do what was presented in a presentation. What you really want to walk away with is knowing that something can be done, because you can always figure out how to do it later. You can email me, you can go to YouTube, or you can take my second best piece of advice, which is press buttons. And I did see before there was a lot of people in the chat that were instructional designers. So you're probably used to experimenting and pressing buttons, but not everyone who sits in front of a computer is. So I just want you to have my email address in case there's something that you see that you want more information on later. If you do put your name and your email address in this once the blog gets set up, and I intend to do that over winter break, and I'll basically once a week be expounding on all these things that I've aggregated for today. And so once a week, you'll get a notification if you want. Otherwise, just go to learnbrightspace.com whenever you want. You can always see what's kicking there. But this is the agenda. So today, welcome to the inaugural kickoff of learnbrightspace.com, which, if you can believe it, I can't believe that domain name was still available. So I also like starting presentations off with a few cool things. And because there's a lot of instructional designers in this room, you might find this one interesting. I am not very good at colors. And by the way, this has nothing to do with Brightspace, but it might bleed into your instructional design work. And you just keep hitting the spacebar until you find a color you like. Say, oh, I really like this color right here. I'm going to lock that in. and I'm going to keep hitting space, and it will give me a palette of colors. So maybe I really want to lock that one in and lock that one in. And I just keep hitting space. And so then it gives you your palettes, and it has all sorts of accessibility things for color blindness and all sorts of cool stuff. So that's coolors.co. And I did put a link to that right here at learnbrightspace.com. I also wanted to let you know, if you don't use Canva, you should be. And if you don't have Canva Pro, you should be doing that too, because it's free for all educators. So this is a link to get you right to Canva Pro for educators. If you don't know what Canva is, it's a cloud-based desktop publishing app, and it has all sorts of sweet templates and sweet clip art that make your work look really, really good. The third thing I want to give a shout out to is unsplash.com. And this actually, I use these in my classes. So instead of going to Google, if I need a picture of a sailboat for something I'm doing in class, instead of going to Google and typing in sailboat, I'll go to Unsplash, because every photo that's up here is CC0, which is Creative Commons 0. You don't even need to give the artist credit for it. So you can do whatever you want with all these photos. And these photos are all collected from across the globe of these brilliant photographers who just want to share their work. So unsplash.com is great if you want copyright-free work to use in your course and you don't need to get permission from the artist. And then likewise, the fourth freebie that you get for coming today is a site called Pixabay, and probably most of you have encountered this as well. And it's very similar to Unsplash. The difference is it also has illustrations. So if I was looking for a sailboat, it naturally gives me the images, but I can change that to, for instance, illustrations. And they actually have movies, sound effects, stuff like that too. So those are the four things that I think are worthwhile just as you kind of get going. Aaron, thanks for keeping up on that. Yeah, and Kelsey, this is great. Like, the reason I learned so much stuff from going to these sessions, just like things that people are doing, you know, tangentially in their course. I'm like, oh, wow, that's really, really cool. Okay, so let me get on to the meat and potatoes. I'm going to show you what I think is the most underrated trick in all of Brightspace. And in Blackboard, most campuses had the add a test student, and we don't have that here. And you'll note that, like, if you ever navigate somewhere in Brightspace, so for instance, here's my course outline. If I were to go to view as FLCC student, then it'll bring me back to the top of the class. So if I'm 2 or 3 levels in, that's a kind of a pain in the neck because I have to keep clicking back. But in Brightspace, there is this feature where, and I'm going to go back to the tab to the left, where if you are, I call it a sacrificial page. So this page that you see right here is something I'm not going to be working in this course. I just needed a course open. If you change it to the student view here, okay, so I'm in the student view, and you can tell because I have that icon there and it says student view. If I go back to where I just was and hit the refresh button, I'm in the student view right where I was. So I don't need to navigate everywhere. And so I can, you know, look at it as a student, be like, oh, that's really, really cool. That looks exactly how I thought it would look. Then I go back to my sacrificial page, change this back to super teacher view, and come back here and again, just refresh. So I think that's a really, that cuts down on productivity. I probably saved maybe like 16 minutes off my life already. And I saw Nancy was adding Pexels as well. And Pexels is another great tool in the spirit of Unsplash and Pixabay. So the very first tab is I want to show you how you can like have that student view. And by the way, they used to say in Blackboard, don't have more tabs than one open in Blackboard. Actually, you said that in Angel quite a bit, but you can do that in Brightspace. So I'm using this waffle here. This is just to show you how to have multiple tabs open without having to go to, like, you know, mylearning.suny.edu. If you want to open up another tab, let's say that I wanted to open up this course right here. Instead of just clicking on it, if you hold down Control, and on a Mac it's Command, it will actually open up in another tab. So I really enjoy just using that control click, I guess you would call it. So if you want, in fact, if I want to open up this module, I'm going to hold down Control, and since I'm on a Mac, it's going to be Command, and then it opens up the module in the next tab. So this is a really slick way to get multiple tabs open. I have not run into any issues doing this, and I've been kicking the tires on Brightspace quite a bit. However, I will say I don't recommend doing it with the gradebook. You never want more than one tab of the gradebook open because you can run into problems. The way the gradebook works in Brightspace, actually, the way you enter grades isn't quite as nice as Blackboard, in my opinion. So I only have one tab of the gradebook open, but I have no problems having multiple tabs of Brightspace open so I can work on different things. And probably one of the best reasons to do that is if you're like me, and I'm going to go to my home screen right here. If you're like me, you might be working in multiple classes, multiple sections of the same class, you know, if you're not merged or anything. So for instance, these two classes are on the same cadence, even though they're both online, but they were both late start. So I usually open up a tab for each of those, and you can see those tabs opening right here. So then if I have to copy and paste one thing to another, it's very, very simple. I can have both those tabs open. So again, that's Control click or Command click if you're on a Mac. Also, if you have a mouse, you can usually press the that scroll wheel, and they call that the third button, and that will accomplish the same thing. Any questions so far? All right. I don't see anything in the chat, so I'm gonna chug along. By the way, I am gonna talk a little bit about creating, I call it branding for your courses, where not only do you have the course image, and this is coming, but not quite yet. I just want to tease it. So if you're tempted to leave, you don't leave quite yet. But coming up with different module images and doing some kind of wonky stuff with those. So we'll be getting there. So if you're thinking about leaving, hopefully I've hooked you for a little bit. I did see yesterday, Dan made a point to mention in Brightspace, when you include a link. So if you are creating content and you make a link, it actually embeds a link if it can right in Blackboard, or I'm sorry, right in Brightspace. I have found that instead of doing that for my course outline, because it looks really, really slick with if your course outline is Microsoft Word, because it's right there. Or if you, I'm sorry, not a link, if you attach a file. But I found that and if you were at CIT, I did a presentation on this, on embedding Google Docs. And one of the reasons I'm a fan of embedding the Google Docs, there's two reasons. One is because every semester, all I have to do is go to my Google Doc, which I have open here, make whatever change. So if I'm going to spring of 2003, I just have to make the change here. And that becomes live in the course. So I don't have to modify anything. But one of the other reasons, and by the way, the reason it says fall in 2002 is because I need to refresh this page, but I'm not going to do that quite yet. So if I refresh this page, then all of a sudden it changes. And that's really great if you have a typo on your course outline. You don't have to consistently upload new documents. You can just change it in the one kind of ground truth spot, which is the Google Doc. The other thing is you can create links that will take a snapshot of your Google Doc and convert it to Word and download it automatically. And the same thing for if you want to convert it to a PDF, or if you're doing a Google slide, you can convert it to PowerPoint or Google Sheets to PDF and also Excel. And one of the ways to do that is, well, I think that might be in the weeds because that's not really part of Brightspace, but I'm happy to answer questions if you want to do that. So this is an all-encompassed package. I create this document once and never again do I need to touch it. Because if the student wants their own copy, they already get a copy. They can just choose their, pick their poison of what form factor they want. And all I have to do is be intentional about changing that particular document, once a semester or whenever I find a typo. I do get questions often though, like, well, shouldn't you have your course outline saved on record? And the answer is yes, but Google Docs has this wonderful revision history in here. So I can say, well, okay, so we're talking about the fall 22 semester. Let me show you, let me show you what it looked like on September 1st, 2022. So you can see all the different versions of that. So that's one of the things that I like doing in Brightspace is a lot of my content used to be done this way, but I've changed how I do it. But for handouts, and I would say, for instance, the course syllabus or the course outline, it's a really good, slick way to kind of maintain that. Shirley, I don't have classes on how to do this. I'm happy to come to your campus virtually or on, in person if you're close enough. I don't charge anything for my freedom. or for my information, I just typically ask for like a sandwich or more important cookies. But some of this stuff will be, if you subscribe to the blog or if you just visit the blog occasionally, you'll see stuff. Oh, sending cookies. Yeah, I'm in. Sign me up then. And again, my email address is daveghidiu@flcc.edu. And that's available right there. Aaron, I don't know if you can I put that in the chat? I might even be able to put that in the chat.
I can put it in. I got you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I like cookies quite. Jane, my favorite cookies, whatever's in my hand at the time that you ask. So, and one of the other cool things that you can do with embedding with Google, since we're on the topic, is oftentimes I'll do like a video, and this might be me walking through, for instance, a slide presentation for something I do in my course for an online course. And I actually have the actual slide presentation. So what in Brightspace, which plays a lot better with custom HTML, I can take that video presentation and embed it. So this is the YouTube video I just showed you. And it's also a slideshow if the student would prefer to do the slideshow. And I could put the button to say download as PowerPoint and download as PDF, but I just didn't get around to it yet. In this tabbed interface is one of the prefab templates in Brightspace, but in the computing sciences department, we actually don't use any of that. And I'll show you what we do, because it is freaking awesome. And I wish that I invented this and designed it. I had nothing to do with it. But it is really, really cool. So I'll show you how we actually do our course design, like our graphic design, in a minute. And I do want to show you one last thing since we're talking about embedding. In best practices, it's always a good idea to give examples to students. So in addition to, and I'm going to sound like a broken record just talking about Google all the time. I don't mean to. I just think that they have some really underrated tools. But they in addition to Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides, they also have Google Drawings. They actually have like 100 different products. But Google Drawings is really slick because you can make what's known as like hotspots on your images. So for instance, let's see, in this infographic assignment, we took samples from students from the past. And this is actually just an image. This is a Google Doc, or I'm sorry, Google Drawing, but it's linked. So if the student wants to see, oh, well, let me see why that was such a good example. And again, this is just a Google Drawing. And then we just host the PDFs on Google Drive and it pops right up. So the students can see everything that makes that example. And again, because this is a Google Drawing, if I want to swap some of these out, I just go to the drawing where that exists and remove this one and put in a link to a different one. So I think Google Drawings is really, really slick. And by the way, this is something I didn't know you could do. And I'm a pretty big power user in Google Docs or Google Drawings. But I think it was this conference last year, and I saw someone doing it. I was like, and the woman presenting didn't even make didn't even mention it. She just was showing something else and just happened to click on it. I was like, I have got to know more about this because there's a lot of potential. Like I can really potentiate my classes using that. So Google Drawings, if as a mechanism to give, for instance, some sample work. The OneDrive, I'll tell you, Karen, why I walked away from OneDrive a long time ago. For a number of reasons. Google Docs and Google Drive is leaps and bounds better than OneDrive when it comes to the user experience for the student and for the teacher. This is what Finger Lakes, by the way, is Microsoft 365 campus. We are 365. It's just that, and so when I'm doing my email with my students, I'll use Outlook. When I'm doing anything like if we have meeting teams, I'll play by those rules. But when it comes to designing content, I refuse to. It doesn't work nearly as well. Their features are not nearly as good. And Microsoft has demonstrated quite aptly that they are not good at the student experience. So for instance, when students graduated from colleges that had OneDrive or the student experience, there was no way for students to migrate their work as a student to their personal account. That just didn't happen. They didn't have a mechanism for that. And then they went back and forth on pricing. So it was like, well, if you don't have Microsoft Office is free. And then they're like, well, no, now we're going to charge. And they're like, oh, it's going to be free. But now the paradigm is it's free unless you're using a screen that's bigger than 10.1 inches, then you have to pay. So I just get rid of all that. But the real reason, one of the other reasons is because version control. So people are used to Microsoft Docs or Microsoft Word rather, and either emailing it or sending a link. But now you have two versions floating around because if someone makes a copy of the the Microsoft Word file, and now you have two different copies that are floating around. So, and you don't have that problem with Google Drive because Google Drive doesn't have files like a traditional file that you can put on a flash drive. It's all web-based. So you don't run into any of those issues. So my heart goes out to you, Karen, if you have to use OneDrive. And Aaron, maybe I can edit the recording before you publish this, but I would say I would just do it. No one's gonna know. And then if someone someone finds out, you can just be like, well, it's just an inferior product. Canva, by the way, is awesome. And their presentation tool, if you didn't know about this, if you're presenting, because I have a slideshow, a Jace product, if you hit the C button, confetti kind of comes down. You can hit the B button and it will automatically blank the screen. So anyhow, Canva is really, really cool. And Canva does have in addition to being free for educators, Canva also has like a Canva University, has all these resources right in Canva to help you walk through it. It's phenomenal software. So my unofficial advice is just do it. Just see what happens. Shirley, I don't know the answer to that about accessibility, if Canva still has accessibility issues. My guess is, since they're pretty much the leader, in fact, they're branching out and going toe to toe with Microsoft and Google now. They have a production suite. So my guess is because they're used in schools as well, that they probably have handled a lot of that. All right, so the next thing that I want to show you is something that is really useful for students. And I took 3 Brightspace trainings. And so if they talked about this, I either missed it or I didn't see the potency in it. But it's really something called the links widget. Actually, there's a core class to show that in. So let me just go back to the course home and show you the links widget. And Karen, as far as accessibility is concerned, also for Google Drawings, it obviously allows for alt tags and title tags, but also off the canvas. So if I were to open up, I can't even see because this Zoom bar is here. I'll just go to Google Drive. Oftentimes what I do when I create a Google drawing is if you were to open up any of my Google drawings, off the canvas, I have a whole bunch of text boxes that explain not only what's going on in there. So if I need to ever embed this with an alt tag, I can just copy and paste that, but also screen readers, even if this doesn't have an alt tag in the image, but where I embed it does have an alt tag, the screen reader will read the text. And the third thing that I usually do is if I get things from Pixabay or Unsplash, I'll always just keep links to them here. So if anyone visits my drawing, then they'll know exactly where I got that from. So Google Drawings, just leaving text boxes off the canvas is a really cool thing to do. And also Google Drawings are dynamic, just like Google Docs. So I think I showed you my course syllabus. And I said, if I change it to spring 2023, then the next time you visit that screen, it's going to have spring 2023 on it, which it does. Google Drawings work the same way. They are live embed. So if you change the Google drawing, it pushes out to wherever that drawing is embedded. But I did want to show you in this course right here, not in this course. I'm going to go to my programming class. I can do it in here. Because I actually have it here. So if I go to course home, there's a module called links, and I don't think by default it's on the in your module page here, but you can just by hitting this this menu right here. By the way, the 3 dots, anyone know what that's called? If it's the 3 dots, it used to be called the hamburger bar when it was like 3 lines. Surely the answer to your question is yes. It's all just HTML, so everything transfers. So I have put in a ton of work, as I'm sure everyone on this call did, over the summer and in this semester, and including today and tomorrow and up until December 17th. But all that will transfer seamlessly in the spring. But by the way, this is called a kebab menu, so you can impress your friends. But this, you can create links to other items. In fact, it might be a little bit better if I were to show you my programming class, because I have more links there. You can create links that are helpful for the students. So I have in my programming class, I have links to different software that we use. So this will go to GitHub, which is where I put all the software that we use. So these are external links, and then links to our textbook. But you can also link to things internally in the class. So for instance, I have in my welcoming course information, because you need to have some home to keep all things like your course information, your policies, all the like housekeeping things. So I just do that in this module. But I have all the agendas from every day that we have class. And if you can click on one agenda, then it will show you exactly what we did in class. It's a record of what we've done. But the problem is, look at this. You have to go into this module, then go to agendas, and then pick an agenda. So even though I'm doing best practices for kind of sequestering my content, it's not it is. I think it's called the links widget, Karen. But if I go back home, I want to give students access to it immediately. So I just go to agenda. I made an internal link that goes there. Dan talked about that yesterday in the course as well, in his session about doing internal links. And you can do that anywhere you want. I just like doing it in a link, because when this is kind of like the landing page for the students. So when they come here, they know that anything that we're using for the centrality of the course, for the backbone of the course, the textbook, external links to the tools we use, where all the software code that I post, some Linux stuff, and then things that I think they might need throughout the day. So like, here's a link to my videos that I have in YouTube for the students, just in case they want them. Okay, so I'll show you how to do that. If you go to, and this is actually really, this kind of boggles my mind that you have to do it this way. So if you go here and edit this homepage, and it's widgets based, so it's called user links. That's what it's called. So sorry, Karen, I lied to you. It's not the links widget; it's the user links, and that's very deceptive. And I think this is why maybe it flew by during training. Thanks, because yes, Nancy, I think all Brightspace is hosted by SUNY, but because user links is bifurcated, you can, as an educator, as a teacher, can put links up there, but also students can put their own links in there. So it's really, really weird. And so you have to kind of go, like every LMS I've ever used, there's 18 different ways to do things. And depending on how you do it, you get 18 different results. But in user links, once you add that widget, and you just hit add widgets and put it wherever you want. So I'm gonna cancel this. Once you add that widget, it's here. But here's how the behavior of this widget is. It allows students to add links. So if I just do add links here, that's not for my students in the class. This is for the end user, myself and the students. So any link I add using add links is just for me, which is bonkers. If you want to add links to everyone to push out, you have to go to course admin and go to links. And then you'll see, oh, by the way, I know I did that very quickly. In course admin, I'm a fan. The default is this by category, and it's really confusing to me. I like doing name because I don't need to know what category they're associated with. So, and that's a sticky thing. I guess, Megan, you're probably right. Maybe it's D2L. I think you're right that they host it, not SUNY, but SUNY has kind of control over the whole thing, as I understand it. But if you go to links, then this is where you add your links. So this should look familiar, where I had the Cloud Shell, the GitHub cheat sheet, the textbook things. So you have to add your links to push out to everyone here. And this is what gets pushed out. the end user can add their own link. So maybe I have a student who's like, oh, I really want a link to Stack Overflow, which is, you know, the Google of coding. So a student could come here and go to add links here, and that link doesn't affect anyone else in the class. That's just persists across their own links. So this is a really, really kind of cool thing. And it is worth noting, because this is one of those other wonky things that I blew by 17 billion times. You can create a link. I guess I'll just do like test link. And this is for an external resource. But if you look very carefully, you see this teeny tiny little thing. That is the quick link. And that will pop up this bar. And this allows you to cherry pick and with laser precision anything that you want from your course. The problem is it's not super easy to see. I can't even see it right now. But in the module, if I want to link to agendas, the problem is if I click on agendas, because that's where I want to link to, it opens up that folder. And so now I have to pick one, and that's not good. So instead, you can, there's this button right here, that this plus that is also understated. So if you go into agendas and see that plus, this will give you access to a link to the folder that holds agendas. Otherwise, you're stuck picking one of these very specific ones. So if you want to link to a folder, look for this also very hidden button, and that will give you a link to agendas. Now, I did not come up with this trick. One of the women in my department, Carrie, did, and I was like, oh, this is really, really slick. So at first, I was very, very dismissive of the links widget, because I was like, well, what's the point if it's just for me to put links for myself? And then she's like, no, you have to go to course admin and go to links if you want to push it out to all the students. Not only do you have to do it there, but you also have to go to the course home and make sure that that links, the user links widget is appears on your course home. So I think that's a really, really kind of cool thing that it doesn't get an awful lot of use. And I do want to show you, I'm ready for the grand unveiling. You will all be the very first people to see this outside of the people, the 5 or 6 faculty in the computing sciences department. But I want to show you this. And for this, because I don't want to alarm in my students, I am going to switch back over to my sandbox course. Although everything you see here, every single piece of content you see, it has kind of like a graphical look to it, and it allows us to embed code, and we can do all sorts of really cool things. So for instance, if I go to here, it looks like it may have been time consuming to actually build this content to make it so, you know, you can download the files and all this. But there's a faculty member in the department named Aaron Sullivan, and he teaches game design and some other things in the department. He's like, there's got to be a better way. We can make content look better. And if you have any web background, you might be familiar with Bootstrap, which is like kind of the canonical ground layer of web design as far as like assets, JavaScript, CSS. And Brightspace sits on top of Bootstrap. So Aaron has plugged into it, and we're not ready to go live with this yet, but he said I could show it. With very, very simple things, you can make a platform. So, and I'm going to change my course color. Let's say I'm doing my Python course. Using Markdown, and Markdown is very, very simple to learn. It's just like if you want heading 1, you use $1. So you can say like, this is some content, and then I can do whatever I'm going to do in there. And let me zoom out just a little bit. And then if you want a bulleted list, you can do bulleted list. Oops. And if you want to do all sorts of cool things like embed YouTube videos, and I don't have one right now, but oh my, sorry, first time using a computer. It will embed the YouTube video. It just makes it look super, super nice, and you can do all sorts of really cool things, including like responsive design, so you can have different columns. He's done a really, really good job with this to make it really leverage the different features that Brightspace has. In fact, he included, like, if you want to do accordions, because one of the problems with accordions or any template in Brightspace is the default template is like 5 items in the accordion. So if you have 3 items or 7 items, you have to like kind of understand exactly how to fix that. But he's gone through and made this really, really easy. There's all these instruction manuals and how to do it. So if you want to do like multiple columns, and this is what you see here is how the content would render in Brightspace. So all you have to do is hit this copy HTML button, and then I guess I'll just toss it in here. Once you have that HTML button, then you can just upload, a file. Paste it in there, hit save, and then save and close. Oh, I need a title. Let's see if that's better. There it is. And so you can have this really, really slick thing in Brightspace without having to learn any HTML whatsoever. And then all we do is save these text files. So you could save this as a text file in Google Drive or OneDrive or wherever you want. We actually save them in GitHub so that we can share them a little bit easier. And so if I need to make a change to this, like let's say I don't want to say multiple column styles, I can make my change, just copy this HTML and then paste it back in. Surely this is when Aaron, who's the guy who came up with this, when he first showed it to me, I was like, this seems like a lot of work. I'm not sure I want to go through it. He's like, just try doing headings. And then he's like, with the headings, all you need to do is 2 caret signs and it does all the formatting for you. I was like, okay, I can do that. And then he's like, okay, and by the way, you should also just do this one heading here if you want if you want H2 or if you want H3. And he's like, and I'll do the rest. I'll make sure that it all works out. So you can see that let me change the headings to left. So he's done all the back work to convert very simple text into a beautiful looking thing. And then as I became more confident with the tool, I was like, oh, well, what if I want to learn how to do call outs? This is something that will over winter break. Actually, I suppose I could, if you email, okay, I'll tell you what, everyone. I need to make this. I'll talk with Aaron to see if there's an updated version. So if you give me a few days, I will do that. And then you can come back to learnbrightspace.com and there will be a link to it. The only thing you need to know is that you should start small. And I will not have the bandwidth to roll out like a user guide for it or a video walkthrough, but I will. That's on the roadmap once we get it up and running. But it just works really, really, really slick. Thanks, Karen. Oh, and there is one more thing I want to show you. Oh gosh, I know we only have 5 minutes left. Awesome, Karen. That these images that you see, this is something that I've developed and that I think is really, really helpful. So I teach this class all online, and all the content is available from day one so students can work ahead. But what I've done is these images right here are Google Drawings. And so if I do branding CSC 1, I just think I need branding 103. Wait for it. There it is right there. So I have this folder and I've made, and I will make available templates if you do want to, if you have the inclination to do what I've done here, where I have each module has its own image, because if you don't put your image there, it just inherits whatever you have at the top. But in Google Drive with Google Drawings, so you're going to get a sneak peek to the Google Drawings, and this is kind of like how the sausage is made. Wait for it. So let me see. Right now, chapter 7, 8, 9, and 10 are all on deck. So if I come back over here and go to game design, And let me just zoom out so you can see what Google Drawings looks like. Oh, by the way, oh, look at that. There's a nice picture from, actually, I think that one's from Pixabay. I could tell you right here because I kept it right there. Yep, there's the link to it. And here's where I keep the alt tag and all that stuff. So when I'm ready to go live with this chapter, which I will be on Monday, all I have to do is come here, send that to the back, send this gray thing to the back. And then when the students come in on Monday or whenever they come into the course, this will not have the upcoming. So I signal to the students by if it's grayed out and it says upcoming, you don't have to be there yet. So if you ever log in and you're like, what course am I on or what module? It's the last one that's active. And sometimes it takes up to 2 or 3 minutes for the Google Drawings to get pushed out. Oh, this one you can see I just changed it and it's live right now. And just so I don't confuse students, I'm going to undo that because I don't want them to think that that's the thing. So this is a flavor of some of the stuff that we've experimented with. Oh, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, I like having that signal so that the students can know exactly like where they should be in the course. And two other things about those module images. One of them is you can put Giphies or animated GIFs as the image, and all it is just like embedding a JPEG or PNG. You just use a GIF. And this is actually a trick that Aaron Maney taught me way back when we were at MCC. And Aaron, this was a WordPress issue, but the same is true in Brightspace. Your thumbnail image that you see in the visual table of contents, this is grabbed by the very first image that's in your description. So Aaron showed me one. She's like, yes, but if you want the image and description to be different than the image that people see when they click in, change the height and the width to 0. So that image is still here. In fact, if I click in here and show you the HTML code, you'll see that there's an image in there. It's just that I changed the height and the width to be 0. So that image is still there, which is why you don't see it here. You see a derivative of it, but you actually don't see the file. You don't see that image here. You see a derivative of it because if you recall, the actual image was right here and it had like the circle that said like chapter 0 and all that stuff. Okay, so I think I'm done. There's 2 minutes for questions. Let me stop sharing my screen.
And folks, you can feel free to type, but also unmute yourself if you'd like to talk with Dave. And I'm going to put a link, Dave, to your blog so that folks can get that list of topics and your contact.
Thanks. And again, I'll start pushing those out. But if you visit that link next week, you'll have access to we call it the Markdown to Brightspace converter, which is super nerdy. And again, it's kind of hard to use. It's overwhelming when you look at it at first, but I would just start with the small stuff. So maybe when I post a link to that, I'll do like, here's some small stuff to start with. Oh, you're very welcome, Brenda.
I don't even know what to ask. My mind is spinning.
Well, I think this is recorded, so you can come back and watch it later. Probably the best thing I'd recommend, Shirley, is if you visit the blog learnbrightspace.com over winter break, I'll start publishing content in there, because what I intend to do is I made a big list of everything that we went over today and some stuff we didn't go over. And those will all be individual blog topics.
Yeah, I'll log in while I'm floating around in the Atlantic.
Well, I'll tell you the way that I think all of us learn Brightspace is like, latch onto something that's really cool and do that one thing. And then once you get the confidence of doing that, then be like, oh, well, what else is out there? Because I kind of mastered this other thing. So I would suggest doing that. So that's why I presented like an array of items, because I want people to be able to see what's out there. Camille, you can certainly share that if you want and have them sign up, and you might just want to clearly articulate that it won't have content until around January, but they can certainly sign up for the pre-release. And go forth and press buttons. If you don't know what something does, do it. And I mean, I grew up on computers. I was born in '78, and I was, using computers at a very young age. And it was like in the '80s and the '90s, if you hit the wrong button, like everything you worked on was gone. but software is so fault tolerant now, and hardware is so fault tolerant. That's not really an issue anymore. So that's why I feel confident telling people to press buttons and kind of explore and poke and prod.
Dave, I'm expecting a line of t-shirts, go forth and press buttons.
That's actually not a bad idea, Erin. Maybe I'll sell them at the blog.
Right? Oh, goodness. All right. Well, in the interest of time, I'm going to wrap us up. So Dave, as always, thank you so much for sharing with us. You always have a wealth of knowledge. I learn something new every time, and I've known you forever. So for those of you joining us, to access the slides and recordings for all of our sessions, I'm going to pop that in the chat here for you. And you can also check out additional sessions on the USDLA website. So this, we do have a break for lunch. Our next session today is at 1 o'clock. So I will be closing down the room in between, and you can get back here with the same link. So thank you very much to each and every one of you. Enjoy your lunch.